Today we're going to go over the tools used to replace my fuel filter on my 2001 Toyota Camry. So first started the job, I actually disconnected the battery. I looked up in my Haynes manual how to depressurize the fuel system, but I got to remove the back seat. So I just decided to use the fuel filter to release the pressure carefully. First step was popping a few vacuum hoses off the air filter box top portion with a pick there. Then I pulled out the air filter. I used this 10 millimeter Koken ratchet icon extension and icon quarter-inch socket to loosen the hose that goes to the air filter box. Pulled that back and basically removed the top of the air filter box and folded it over on the top, leaving the electrical connections connected. Then I used the same 10 millimeter quarter-inch socket and the Koken ratchet to remove the three 10 millimeter bolts at the bottom of the air filter box and just remove the bottom out of the car. I just placed it in somewhere off to the side. Then I got the 19 millimeter and 14 millimeter line wrenches I have. I got a good snap-on for 14 millimeter, but for 19 millimeter I got an off-brand Koken. But they both work great. Was able to use the line wrench portion for this. This is for the bottom. So the 19 grabs the filter, you just hold that in place, and then the 14 millimeter you use to loosen the flare nut, I guess it's called. So let some gasoline out and then let it depressurize. Had a bunch of rags down there to catch it. I had a little oil catch pan underneath, but it wasn't needed. That was the 10 millimeter wrench I used to remove the battery before I started all this. Safety first. So once that was depressurized, there was a plastic clip on top of the. So this is where I got a 10 millimeter quarter-inch socket and ratchet and remove the 10 millimeter bolts that go into the bracket holding the fuel filter. This pliers was able to grab the plastic clip underneath a wire harness that's on the fuel filter bracket. I used this mirror to see kind of what was going on because I was grabbing it in the wrong orientation blindly. But once I saw what's going on, I was able to grab in the right orientation. The clip popped out, so then the wire harness clip was free of the bracket. And then after that, you could, on the top, there's just a plastic clip that I was able to use these same pliers on to, squeeze the top and bottom to unclip the plastic clip that holds the fuel line in. I actually had to reuse it on the new one because it didn't come with one. So once the two fuel lines were off, you leave the bottom one kind of just in there. So then once you remove the two 10 millimeter fuel filter bolt brackets, you can just remove the whole assembly out. And then once you get it, you take it to your bench or whatever. And then there's a 10 millimeter bolt nut on it. Well, actually a bolt that you got to remove. And it's basically a bracket that holds the filter in place. And then you got to pry the bracket open a little bit. It's just some sheet metal. And then when reinstalling it, you got to smash it back into place, and it wants to flex back. So I ended up using these vice grips to bend it back in place and hold it in place while I could get the 8 millimeter bolt started. So at this point, I decided, okay, I wanted to use a quarter-inch because 10 millimeter bolts were the biggest thing here. It'd be great to use all my quarter-inch stuff, but at this point, I needed a nut gripper, and I don't have the quarter-inch nut gripper. So I decided to get the 3/8 8 millimeter nut gripper out and icon adapter to switch from quarter-inch to 3/8 here. So I was able to get that bolt started and snugged it on with one of these ratchets on my bench here. And then I actually did all this when my car was parked on the street. So that's why I didn't film it. So once I got that 8 millimeter bracket bolt secure, you got to make sure that the top fuel line is coming out perpendicular to where the bracket bolts are going in, because at first I had it misorientated. But I noticed it right away. So it's not like I tried to install it like that. So it took a little while, but I got it in there, got the bolts started. The vice grips were absolutely necessary to hold the bracket in place. And then from there on, I said, you know, I need the nut grips for the rest of the job, because it makes it, it's like a cheat code. They make the job, if you could hold the nut in there while you start the bolts, makes everything easier. So these 10 millimeter bracket bolts were kind of down in there. So this is a variety of spinners, and I had the 3/8 spinner, the 1/4 inch spinner, whatever seemed to work. I thought the 1/4 inch was too small, but you know, when you're doing little delicate stuff inside an engine bay like this, it's actually useful. And the 24 tooth ratchets worked fine, but it was getting close to the point where I was like, well, yeah, I'm in the engine bay. Maybe I should be using the 72 tooth Zeal ratchet. Been trying to keep the handles clean on those, and I like the knurled grips. So until I get to a point where I really need the small arc swing, I'm just gonna keep using these old school Koken ratchets with knurling. So then, you know, started reassembling everything. Got the brackets installed. Tightened up the ferrule nut using the line wrenches. Popped in the plastic clip on top, and now I'm explaining. You know, I'm going basically putting the bottom of the air box back on with the 10 millimeter bolts. I use the nut gripper for that. At this point, it's just so much easier for even though it's not necessary for that. The air box would have caught the bolts if I dropped them. It just makes the job so much easier. So Icon stuff's on the left there. Adapters, 10 millimeter socket, extensions, and then the Koken stuff is on the right. 8 and 10 millimeter nut grip, 3/8 semi-deep sockets, and 8 millimeter Zeal socket. Actually came in handy while the vice grip was gripping it. It needed a very small clearance to start but I could have moved the vice grip. So I'm gonna cut this fuel filter open here and analyze it to see. I'm gonna make a determination on my truck. It's got 50,000 miles on its current fuel filter, and maybe I should change them at 100,000. So I'm gonna let this one decide for me. It's probably got 192,000 miles on it.